One of the biggest reed making mistakes you can make is by working with a dull knife. Really, it's disheartening to work with a dull knife because you'll scrape, you'll probably break your tip or it'll shred easily. You'll press into the cane fibers because it's hard to get the cane to come off. But wouldn't it be nice if you had a really sharp knife where you put it down on the cane and you scrape and the cane comes off exactly where you wanted it to? That is the power of a sharp knife. And I have a couple other videos on how to sharpen a knife, but today I figured we'd go through it very quickly and I'll show you the difference on maybe what scraping with a dull knife would look like and scraping with a sharp knife. So let's go ahead and soak some reeds up. Okay, first thing first, we'll take a blank, soak it in some water. And I have two knives here. This knife is very dull. I'll demonstrate that later. And then I have this knife right here. It's kind of my go-to, but it's also very dull right now. However, I really like this knife a lot. And so we're going to sharpen it up. So we'll sharpen this one, and this one we will leave as it is. So quickly we'll go through my knife sharpening process. Wet your sharpening stone. This is a Shaped-In 1500 grit. You always want to make sure you have plenty of water on there. Okay, get my hands off. And you'll start with the blade pointing away from you, all the way flat. Tilt up about a dime height, so you could slide a dime under the back of the reed. And then go forward and back in a W shape. Move this out of the way a little bit. Okay, forward and back. And I do this about 20 or 30 times. Okay. And my microphone fell. Okay, I'll just clip it right there. There we go. Okay, so after you finish up with your dime height movements, end with the blade facing away from you, and then you'll do a nickel height. So raise it so you could slide a nickel under there, and same thing, back and forth. You want to move in a W shape. W. Good. And then you'll start at the back of your knife. And same thing. Blade is facing towards you. Tilt up a nickel height in the back. Go forwards, back. You want to try to keep very even pressure here. And once you get comfortable with this movement and can maintain that angle, you can go faster. I'm just getting the full blade here. Great, then you start at the back again. Do a nickel height. Forward, back. Always end with the blade facing towards you. Then the last stroke, the blade will face away from you again, the sharp edge. Place it down. Notice how the knife is wider than my stone. So I always put it towards the back and I angle the burr towards the right. So the tip part that I use the most will be the last thing that I sharpen. So angle up a dime height in the back, and one swipe is all you need. Forward and to the right. And get all that excess metal off. Good. It feels pretty sharp, which is awesome. But I always like to use my Jende sticks. This is not a requirement, you do not have to. I just find it helps me get a super sharp edge. Okay, great. Okay, let's take our reed that we have drowning in the water. I don't know if you saw that, it toppled over, so. There we go, blow the excess water out. Okay, get your mandrel. And for this, I just want to show you the difference when I work with my sharp knife and when I work with my dull knife. I'll start with my dull knife. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll start in the tip. Okay, cane's coming off, not like super easily though. I don't know if you can tell. I'm putting my knife there and I'm having to press a little bit harder than I want to get the cane to come off. Okay, well, yeah, I'm pressing harder than I want to. And so what that's doing is it's pressing the fibers of the cane down into the reed. It's also making me use more of my knife. So I like to use just the first couple of millimeters of my knife mostly, because that's where the most pinpointed work will be that you can get. And I feel like as it gets dull, I have to use the further and further back because that's where it's sharper. And that makes me take a flatter scrape along the cane. Because notice, you know, if I'm scraping with this part of my knife, it's harder. There's more knife on the reed, so it's harder to keep the surface of the cane, you know, scrape with that curvature of the cane. So let's try this newly sharpened knife and see what happens. Oh boy, oh wow, that is sharp. Okay. I have to be really careful. It's very sharp. Usually after I sharpen it, I have to, if I've been using a dull knife, it's like, wow. I've got to, it barely takes any effort at all, you guys. So I can be super pinpointed, like, oh, maybe I want to scrape this little bit right there. And I can. Wow, okay. And having a sharp knife like this allows me to just effortlessly take the cane off the reed. Look at that. Look at how it's just coming off. Like butter. That's what we used to say in school. Coming off like butter. All right. I know I'm corny. I have corny jokes. I feel like you have to if you're an oboe player, right? And you make reeds. You just sit and do this for a couple hours every day. All right. That feels pretty good. So I feel like I've kind of demonstrated that. Again, if I go back to this dull knife, oh, I don't like it. I can tell. Okay, there we go. Hopefully you could see how using a very sharp knife, a knife that's newly sharpened, where all the angles of the burrs are angled the same direction, really can change how you scrape on a reed. And if it's effortless like that, using the sharp knife to scrape the cane off, then it's gonna become a reed much more easily. So I say this, and I wanted to make this video because it's important. And it's gonna make your life easier if you take just a few minutes to sharpen your knife. And if you're having a hard time getting your knife sharp, there are a couple things you can do. You can check out, I'll link it so you can check that out on how I sharpen my knife, which is what I demoed in the beginning. But also there could be something else going on. Maybe your knife has just been sharpened poorly over the years and you've had it a while, and it might just be time for a new knife so you can start fresh. Maybe you can regrind your current knife down using a coarser stone. I like to use a 1500 for my normal everyday sharpening, but you can use a lower grit stone to get some of that burr, just, you know, take the bad stuff off, have more of an even playing field. And then you can work your way up to using a higher and higher number stone. You can even use a, oh, what's it called? The diamond stone. That'll work. That's a lot coarser to help you get that angle back and the edge back in your knife that'll make you like it. But there's tons of great knives out there. You can check out in the description box. I'll put a link to all the supplies that I use, but there's tons of different knives. I mean, my favorite ones, of course, I always talk about are Landwell knives, but they're expensive. And there are knives out there that are equally as good. Rigatti has some, and there's some inexpensive options on there. So check out that list below in the description box if you are in need of a new knife. And I hope this video helped you. See you next time.